we're very very well prepared around here. Hey, what's up, America? Hey, welcome to Get to Know the CEO. It's the show where we attempt to humanize corporate America through the magic and power of stupid questions. Today's CEO, what's your last name?
It's Bhagatjee.
Oh, see, I knew you'd nail it and I'd fuck it up. So I had you say it. So normally, I guess on podcasts, we talk about business, but I don't want to talk about business. I would rather you answer the 5 questions of doom, which you did. The 5 questions of doom have to do with music, movies, food, your death row meal, and your favorite quote. So Let me just say this before we start. The first one is music. And I got to tell you, your answers spoke to my soul.
Can't go wrong with those guys, right?
You can't. So let's pull up number 1. So the first question is your 3 favorite bands. This band. All right. Let me just say what I have to say about Zeppelin real quick before you go. Whatever rock and roll is supposed to be cosmically is what Led Zeppelin is. Like, you have an unbelievable frontman, an unbelievable guitarist, the greatest drummer of all time, a very serviceable bassist, but it's blues based. It's original. They look the part. They had a major death at 27, which you kind of have to have in rock and roll. Right. And I think, like, they're not necessarily my favorite band, but they are the greatest rock and roll band of all time.
That's actually why they're my favorite band, just because they're the greatest rock and roll band of the millennia, right? Am I wrong in that?
I don't think, no, you can't. I don't think you can argue this point. And they also, because of John Bonham's death, they died a hero rather than become, so they didn't put out any shitty albums. Like, everything is absolutely unbelievable. Right. They quit at the height because they could have replaced them, but they chose not to. So there's like nothing bad. It's all fucking unbelievable.
And to your point, they have a mix of every element required to be one of the greatest. Tragedy, music, the greatest hits. Members, like, literally, it's like the perfect mantra, the mix.
Speaking of the greatest hits too, so I sort of like to enter the echelon of greatness as far as I'm concerned, and I'm a nobody. But if you can play for 3 hours and everybody knows every one of those songs, then you're among the greats, and they are that. I went to I should mention this so I went to a Led Zeppelin cover band concert in DC with my brothers who are turning 29 today. Happy birthday, Troy and Colin. But you can't sit. So obviously I wasn't around for the original Led Zeppelin, but even in a cover band scenario, it's just a wall of unbelievable sound. You know?
Absolutely. I mean, right next to Rolling Stones, I attended a bunch of concerts of Rolling Stones in Philadelphia back in the day. I'm talking like early 2000s. Again, legends,
Rolling Stones are somebody said of well, listen, Gabe, if you look like that, why wear a shirt? Robert Plant, that's the other thing too. Like, listen, I'm very very heterosexual, but if you want a front man of a rock and roll band, he needs to look good shirtless. He needs to have a wild mane of hair. He needs to scream like a banshee, which Robert Plant does. It's fucking unbelievable. The Stones.
I'll just go with this was the cleanest piece of cloth I had.
Yeah, right. I'm sure he smells terrible, but he looks great. There's no way they were showering.
Yeah.
Somebody said, I think Zappa might have said it of Jimi Hendrix. Like, the first time people saw Hendrix play, it must have been like seeing color. And I'm not saying anything bad about Hendrix. I agree. I think probably hearing the first Zeppelin album must have been like seeing color, because people forget how fast music evolved. 20 years before this, you were listening to God knows what, and then this is like, oh God, just totally different. It ushered in rock and roll as we know it. It's fucking crazy. Yeah. That's crazy. Yeah. All right.
Unbelievable.
Your second band is in my top 3.
Is it really?
Yes, I love Pink Floyd with every fiber of my being. I like ethereal, floaty, weirdo shit that goes well with mushrooms, and that's exactly what Pink Floyd is. And the thing I like about Floyd too is that Dark Side of the Moon was their 8th album. Their 8th album. So they did 7 okay albums before that. They lost their original lead singer to LSD.
Right.
And then their 8th album is Dark Side. Then you get Wish You Were Here and The Wall and Division Bell. So that's
one after another after that, right?
Yes. Not only are they unbelievable, but there's a story of perseverance and wild originality. Nobody sounds like Pink Floyd.
Yep. And even now, I feel like, I forget the name of the new guy. I should remember this. I have so many things going on top. He does cover, what's his name? Dave Gilmour.
David Gilmour and Roger Waters are the 2 dudes.
Yeah. The Dave Gilmour does like singles covers, and like he'll go to bars, and he's as good as like these guys being around, and one man army kind of thing, right?
Yeah. Well, that's the other. So there's nobody died at 27 in Pink Floyd, so they don't have that mark on their unfortunate mark on their resume. But they have nice. They have that antagonistic aspect. Gilmore versus Rogers, and it fascinates me that any band does anything because like four dudes trying to come up with like writing songs and parts and harmonizing and getting their shit in while the other people get their shit in. It's like so, and especially like when you have two guys that really give a shit. It must be very difficult. You kind of need like you need Axl Rose and four dudes who just don't give a shit. And it never works out that way. It's always like so the fact that these guys did as many albums as they did before they broke up is fucking unbelievable.
That is true. And I mean, I feel like the spaces in my mind, correct me if I'm wrong, Eric, half of these guys who are almost gods are from Britain and the other half are from the United States, right? It's like
it's almost I think about this a lot too because it's almost as if like I'm using the royal we as Americans, but we came up with jazz and blues, and those are great by themselves. Then we sent them over to England, and they're like, "Holy shit, I think I can improve on this." And then they sent us back, the Who, Rolling Stones, Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd. We're like, "Holy shit, we kind of made it better." How did you do that?
So there's a little bit of genius there.
I don't know what it is over about England. Their food is terrible. We kicked their ass in war, but boy, they get it rock and roll. Gabe, can I just say this about Led Zeppelin and drugs? I don't mean to be pro-drug on this show, but I think music was a lot better when bands did a ton of drugs. I think in the 60s and 70s and 80s, you were seeing a lot of drug use, and holy shit.
I'm absolutely with you. I've never really tried any. Maybe once I retire at some point, but from what I've heard, definitely that's my retirement plan. After 70, do at least engage with mushrooms, psychophobia and stuff. But from what I know, because I have a lot of musicians who are friends and some who've I would say dabbled with acid, it opens up a different dimension for them. That's what I've heard. Like they're like, I can't produce what I do normally. So maybe there is something to it.
Yeah.
All of these guys were hooked on, right?
I'll send you clips of another show that I do. So I did an episode on the demonization of psychedelics, and it's mostly focused on mushrooms because that's the most approachable, natural psychedelic. And there's nothing bad about mushrooms. You don't get hungover. You don't get addicted. You cannot die. There is no overdose threat. The only problem with like if you can't play an instrument, mushrooms aren't going to help you play guitar. But whatever you do, maybe I think it would open up, avenues of creative thought in whatever aspect of your life that you are particularly interested in. So I highly recommend them.
You know what? I am totally. I've been thinking about, maybe trying a product. Actually, here's why, because there's actually a bunch of startups that have gotten funded in the space because they've kind of sort of recognized the medicinal value of some specific psilocybin mushrooms.
Oh, well, listen, you're going to love this show too, because we deep dive into studies where like there's some term for depression that can't be cured by conventional means. One trip on psilocybin seems to work. Whereas everything we have, and we poured billions of dollars into the big pharma, and mushrooms seem to is the thing that seems to punch through, which is unbelievable.
Yeah, it's funny we're talking about this because even CNN back in the day, and I mean, like a couple of years ago, they did a report on CEOs in Silicon Valley, and a lot of those folks had dabbled in stuff like that, which allowed them to come up with such creative ideas and just disrupt industries. So
I've heard about these retreats. Can you imagine being on mushrooms and you're just in a room with Bill Gates and Zuckerberg and you
that's
colors and seeing sounds? You're like, holy shit, this is weird.
That's the dream, Eric.
Someday. Gabe, have you never heard of Magenta Floyd? They're a tremendous band. All right, your next band. This took me down a road, which I found very exciting. It's pink, Pearl Jam. I picked this picture of Pearl Jam because it's an older picture. And every time I do this, it freaks me out how old these people in these bands that I love are. Look at Eddie Vedder. Eddie Vedder is 59.
That's crazy. Yeah, thanks for sharing this pic, by the way.
It's horrifying, isn't it?
Yep. I mean, these are kids we grew up with. I'm an 80s baby, so
I was born in 1980, so I'm glad you brought that up. So this is the thing about Pearl Jam. 10 came out in 1991. I printed out the rest of the albums that came out in 1991, and it was a goddamn golden age of music. Do you want to hear this? Okay. So in 1991, you had Nirvana's Nevermind, Pearl Jam's 10, Metallica's Black Album, Red Hot Chili Peppers' Blood Sugar Sex Magic, Soundgarden's Bad Motorfinger, Guns N' Roses' Use Your Illusion 1 and 2, U2's Octon Baby. You also had Tribe Called Quest album, Public Enemy, NWA, Cypress Hill. I mean, it was like, and it was back when we kind of had a monoculture, so everybody was exposed to everything. Yep. And what a goddamn year for music that was.
And I remember this was our mantra in school. This is where the party began, Pearl Jam. And I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, but half of these guys came out of Seattle, the grunge capital.
It's like you're setting me up for everything. Actually, Eddie Vedder sold me my Honda Odyssey. So the beautiful thing about Pearl Jam too is, are you familiar with the band Mother Love Bone?
May have heard of him, but not really heard any songs.
So Mother Love Bone was a band in Seattle, and they sort of, if you listen to them, they sort of bridge the gap between hair metal and grunge. You can sort of see how, it's trending in a certain direction. Their lead singer was a guy named Andrew Wood. Andrew Wood died of a heroin overdose. Ooh. So the remaining members of Mother Love Bone got together with what was Soundgarden in its infancy.
Oh, really?
They needed another singer. So they put an ad in the paper looking for a singer. Eddie Vedder responds. So they listened to his tape. He's living in California, I think, at the time. They call Eddie Vedder into the studio to record this tribute album to Andrew Wood, which becomes Temple of the Dog.
Okay.
That session gave us Pearl Jam because two members of Mother Love Bone.
Oh, wow.
Find things like this in life fascinating. Andrew Wood doesn't die. They don't do the tribute album. We don't know who Eddie Vedder is. Pearl Jam has never formed. That's crazy, isn't it?
It's unbelievable. It's mind-blowing. Thanks for sharing that story. I never knew, because believe it or not, but Soundgarden is right up there for me with Pearl Jam, and it fell on Black Days, Black Hole song.
Oh my God.
Like, I mean,
that man's voice is unbelievable. And according to lore, the Temple of the Dog, the tribute album that they did together brought Soundgarden closer together. And that really, they were like, we got to take this shit seriously. So not only, it probably gave us a better version of Soundgarden, and it gave us Pearl Jam.
Thanks to them.
What
Thanks
a year.
To the rock gods coming together.
The late 80s, early 90s. I'm telling you, there's golden age in music, movies, and television.
Hey, Eric, you know what? I recently found out that the reason we love these guys, or, some folks love hip hop, some folks love rock, is because there's the music that each of these categories is producing actually resonates with the DNA in your body. So it
has to. There's no other explanation. Because yesterday on the show, so a lot of people say the Beatles on this, and I've thought a lot because I talk about music a lot on the show. I was like, why? I recognize that the Beatles are great, but they don't resonate. Like, it doesn't fill my soul. I know it's good. And it's fine if it's on. I don't like, this sucks. I know that you guys are great. It doesn't resonate.
Yep.
I used to always go like, well, I can't relate to it. But then I talk about when Doggy Style and The Chronic dropped, and I was like, I fucking love this. There's no way I related to that. It has to be something else, a vibration, a DNA thing. I think
it's the vibration matching with your DNA. That's why you suddenly see people start dancing. They can't control themselves, right?
It's got to be something cosmic, because nothing else makes sense. I loved Poison and Motley Crue before grunge came along, but it's not like I was doing, cocaine on the Sunset Strip. I was 8 years old. I wasn't an angsty teenager, but I loved grunge. I don't know. I think it's vibrational.
Oh, that's a great story.
All right, let's move on to movies. This, your movie selections were very interesting. The Big Short.
Pretty diverse, huh?
Very diverse. But The Big Short is a perfect example, like a Hollywood example of why no system is perfect. Capitalism, for example, the free market, we think that's the greatest. If it goes unregulated, this is exactly what happens. People end up losing their houses and banks collapse. Yep. So it's like all these weird things like, oh, fuck socialism. Oh, what do you hate public schools and roads? Like, capitalism is the best. Well, really? Because it cost you your house. So fascinating story.
And like fascinating cast. I mean, these guys came together. Like, think about like Christian Bale, Ryan Gosling and Brad Pitt. I mean, these are four of the biggest movie stars. Four of my favorite stars too, coming together to paint that story. I mean, it was just mind blowing. And I actually have a finance background. I was in Wall Street, in investment banking prior to doing this. So I exactly got it. You know, I was like,
It's hit
wow.
close to home.
Yep. I'm
The
sorry.
thing, I said it hit close to home for you.
Absolutely.
The housing crisis too, I think, I don't want to victim blame. And listen, like everything, it's multifactorial, but it was predatory lending, but it was also dumb borrowing. Like if you
Yep.
know you can't pay the mortgage, despite how much you might want that $1 million house, signing your name on that piece of paper was stupid. So
Yep.
it wasn't like, okay, it was propped up on, lies, but they also needed a population that was willing to be stupid and not do math,
Absolutely.
So,
And I feel like I have a little more that I could add to that. So, you know, if you look at the history of what happened in the United States, it was actually a part of, I would say the government was responsible for, I'd say I'd give them at least 40% of the blame, right? Because you got to have regulations in place. But more importantly, if you think about the 1970s, the government came up with the Community Reinvestment Act, and the strategy there was, hey, China and the Middle East, all of these guys are sending their savings to the United States because we're the only ones who had a mature financial market. So the intention there was, why don't we raise, the middle class and the lower middle class by offering them loans so they could, live the American dream, own a home, and then that would motivate them to actually have a job.
Yeah.
But they forgot to look at the lending standards and throw in a little bit of greed from the bankers, and boom, that's what you get.
I mean, the fact that they were offering, so correct me if I'm wrong, for a long time, getting a mortgage in the United States was tough. You had to have good credit. You had to have a down payment. You had to have a lot of shit that made that borrowing a solid investment for the bank. Then they're like, well, look how solid this is. Let's back off the regulations to the point where there was no income, no asset verification loans.
Correct.
But that is that's lying about the thing. Like here's, you say mortgages are great, so let's give them to everybody because they're great. Well, they were only great because you gave them to people that could afford them. Oh boy.
Well, I hope we learned something from it. That's all I'm going to say.
Well, I don't know. Did we? Gabe, somebody said about this too. They're like, this is the best cast of all time with the worst haircuts. It's like everybody in this cast looks like a goddamn idiot with the haircut. I don't know what happened. All right, let's move on to the next one. I loved this movie when it came out. I watched it when it came out. I've never seen it again, but for this show, I watched the trailer, and goddamn, this movie was unbelievable.
Yep. It's like an epitome of like a great mix of like super intelligence and humility because of his condition, I guess, right?
Schizophrenia seems fucking wild, but I was thinking about this. Like all progress comes from deviance. Ergo, you have to have sort of a deviant way of thinking to break out. Schizophrenia probably helps with that. The problem with schizophrenia is that you might end up, talking to a wall, or you need a nice balance of hyper intelligence, schizophrenia, and probably a million other things that make someone like this guy successful. But you know what I mean? Like you can't, if you're just staying in the middle and your brain works like everybody else's, you're probably not going to be, you're not going to push things forward in a quantum way. This
pushing
guy did,
the envelope, so to speak, right?
Yeah. So it's a little scary.
Did a great job too. This guy just killed it.
It's a hell of a cast. Jennifer Connelly, I don't want to sound misogynistic here, but gorgeous. And then Ed Harris is such a good actor. Like this, it's an unbelievable movie.
Yep. Definitely opened some barriers.
I looked up the Rotten Tomatoes score. This is what I hate about critics. This is 74% from the critics. Well, 26% of you didn't like this movie. What the fuck is wrong with you? 93% of the audience, though. So the audience is off the hook. This movie's unbelievable. All right. This one I watched again last night just to be fresh. Interstellar. Oh boy.
I'm all over the place, ain't I?
No, they're all good. I guess that's the through line. But I'll say this about Interstellar. Christopher Nolan movies are an event, and I'm not sure how many other directors today you can say that for. A new Christopher Nolan movie comes out and everybody gets super excited. And I don't want to pull one of these like I liked him before he was cool thing, but I liked him before he was cool. I watched Memento a million times. I thought that movie was goddamn unbelievable.
I mean, it was just to be able to just think of something like this is just inspiring, mind-blowing, right? Like how could you even conceive of Interstellar where you're going into space and then you're looking past a dimension that normal mortals just can't even conceive of?
It's evidently it took him 4 years to write this script, which really? I mean that's a long time, but you nailed it. Here's the other thing too. I find this, I think it's a movie that says a lot about the human condition. Stay with me. So ostensibly the world's going to die. Like we're all going to die because we can't, the fucking, we did what we're obviously going to do to Earth, which is destroy it. And then it's not going to be able to feed us. And then we're all going to die. That thing, the idea that we're all going to perish, doesn't get us emotional in this movie. I think what gets us emotional is the scene where McConaughey is seeing the video diaries while he's gone.
Yep.
Right. So, and then the last scene where he sees his daughter and she's about to die, but he's the same age. And she's like, he goes, how did you know this was going to work out or whatever? And she goes, because my dad promised me. And that's like when people lose their shit. Not that the entire planet's going to die and we're all dead, but that real sort of intimate moment. And I think that says something about humans. I'm not sure exactly what. Maybe that we need relatability to get emotional.
I guess it makes you think and stop what's important, right? It's not the material things. It's like the relationships in your family and stuff like that. And then if you remember, he was like somewhere behind the scenes at maybe this was towards the end where he was trying to connect with her. He could literally like behind that library thing, he was floating around. That resonated with me a lot too.
It's an emotional movie, and it's an interesting thing to do script wise, to go so big in terms of the plot. And like, he's quantum physics and fucking space travel. And then it goes, and then to really bring it home emotionally with individual fleshed out characters and their emotions is, it's like very big and very small, which is interesting. This is also, I wouldn't say it's a fear of mine, farting in space, but I am obsessed with the bathroom in space, which no movie seems to ever address. Like shitting in space can't be a blessing.
Hey, we got to talk to Elon about that.
I read in a book somewhere, they're like, I will never get to Mars because the amount of shit we got to bring. And that makes sense because, oh my God, the water, the waste, the food, it's just the size of the craft is going to be huge. And shit, and the people nobody wants to talk about this, but like drinking and pissing is going to be a big part of this. It just is, because we're creatures that have to take things in and put things out.
There's got to be a better way, Eric. I mean, we got to find a portal so you could travel in like a minute or something.
Yeah. Or the other option. So I did this book called Evolving Ourselves. This guy had a good idea. So evidently right now they figured out how to transplant memories from rat to rat. So they'll teach one rat how to do a maze, and then they do something with his brain, put in another rat's brain, and then that rat can do the thing. So this is the beginnings of downloading our memories and our personalities. Oh, so wow. I think in maybe a couple hundred years, maybe quicker, who knows, we will be cyborgs. They'll just put our brain on some sort of drive. And then that way, no more shitting, no more pissing, no more food, send us to space.
Wow.
I think being cyborgs is the only way to go. Here's the other thing about Interstellar. It was scored by Hans Zimmer, who did The Lion King, Gladiator, the Dark Knight trilogy. Some of these guys are so good at making movies sound amazing, and he's one of them.
Oh, really? Wow. Okay. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that.
Look at this deep dive research we do over here at Offensively Creative Headquarters. Okay, now we're going to go into literature. This is the book, right? Gideon's Spies.
Ever heard about it?
I didn't. I did a little bit of research, though. Fascinating. So this is about the Israeli intelligence department.
Yep. This is about Mossad. And, they capture some real life events. And I encourage everyone to read this. Because it literally, like after I read it, it just changed my understanding of how the world works, what's presented to us and what's reality and, what goes on behind the scenes.
Oh, I'm sure it's horrifying. This is the thing about Israel. This is going to be such a dumb analogy, but so unless you do the thing that somebody's asking you to do, you're not going to be good at it. My example is this: like on the weekends, I run. Not much, but like 6 miles. My wife is in unbelievable shape, but she never runs. So despite that, I'm fucking 100 pounds heavier than her, I can outrun her because I don't do that. One time she does bar. So there was like a bring your boyfriend to bar thing. And you're pumping these little tiny weights, and I'm exhausted. It's kicking my ass, and all the girls are chuckling at us. You're not doing the thing they're asking you to do, so you're not good at it. Israel's surrounded by enemies who want them dead. They want, it's as contentious as things might get between us and Mexico and Canada. They don't want us dead, but they are surrounded by people trying to kind of exterminate them. So their defense, their intelligence communities must be ungoddamn believable because they live it every single day for real, So, can you possibly imagine
being surrounded by like 20 different countries are out to get you? But I was talking to my dad about this, and I feel like they're both the guys who are trying to get them and Israelis. I feel like they're both cut from the same cloth, which is why neither side ever gives up.
No, it's horrifying. Hey, what's up? I don't remember the 3 shells in Demolition Man. We're gonna go back to the what can you, Gabe? Can you expound on this? Do you remember Manu, the 3 shells and does it have to do with ass wiping your ass with shells?
Probably. I have no idea. I have no idea. I'm sorry.
I don't either. I need to go back and watch Demolition Man, although I am a big fan of Demolition Man. Wesley Snipes' finest work. Okay.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Back.
So no, I don't think it was a dumb analogy. Here's why. I don't know. I'll explain it later. Okay. The next book. Don't sweat the small stuff. Here's the only thing with don't sweat the small stuff. I think some people are genetically predisposed to sweating the small stuff. A lot of people are very high strung. Do you think the book would help them?
I think so. I mean, it didn't. I mean, it just. I'd say it just allowed me to reaffirm my beliefs. But if you really are that neurotic, then this is a great read because it really makes you look at the big picture, and you're like, why am I worrying about? If I take care of the big stuff, the small stuff takes care of itself. That's the one-line summary I would say from this book, right?
I think you're right. Well, I had ChatGPT give me the key points. Do you want to just you want to corroborate these? Focus on the big picture.
Exactly.
Mindfulness and letting go is very important.
Yep.
Don't take things personally.
Yep.
Ooh, yeah. Do you want to expound on that one?
I was going to say, because you just don't have enough time to attend to all of that, right? You can either attend to every single thing that's been thrown at you, for example, taking things personally, or focus on your goal.
Yeah, I I go with the opposite of taking things personally. If you don't like me, I think it's I'm judging you as a your judgment of character. Like fuck you. You know what I mean? I think that's a healthier way. I think people would say that's asshole-ish, but like I think it's a better way to live.
Hey, not everyone's supposed to like you, Eric.
No, listen, not everybody likes blue cheese, and blue cheese is a goddamn delight.
Exactly.
Okay, so live in the present and accept imperfections.
I think so. I mean, this is kind of sort of the mantra, I mean, focus on what you're doing and everything would fall in place. Don't get distracted by people, things that are being thrown at you, places or things you don't care about. And I think, if I were to summarize it in another way, it would just be like, don't give a fuck about shit you don't care about. I mean, that's the easiest thing.
I think not giving a fuck in general about a lot of things. I think if we gave less fucks, we'd probably be better off. We need to give fucks about the right things. What's that?
It saves you a lot of time. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I would think so. With this book, it brings me back to that idea. Like, never in the history of calming down has somebody calmed down after being told to calm down. So it's like, don't sweat the small stuff is great advice if you can pull it off. Like calming down is probably good advice if you can calm down in the moment. I just think humans are like, we want this magic bullet thing. We want to believe if we read "Don't Sweat the Small Stuff" that we will stop sweating the small stuff. But you kind of have to practice that shit, don't you?
You're right. It is a conscious decision. You can't just wake up in the morning and say, okay, I'm going to stop sweating the small stuff. You got
to practice and practice.
You got to pull yourself back, right, on a daily basis, and then you get there after a few months.
Let me ask you: if ChatGPT does your taxes and it fucks it up, who goes to jail? ChatGPT. How he doesn't pay taxes. Yeah, see, Gabe, I think the problem here is those are not small stuffs. I mean, I could be wrong. It's perspective. That's the other thing in life is that there is no absolutes. Okay, there are no absolutes. The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. This is a book that everybody seems to love, but it's never been on this list. So
really,
yeah. Do you want me to go over the 7 habits and we can see if we agree on these?
I mean, I honestly, all I remember is I'll be honest, I don't remember the 7 habits. We actually covered this as part of like my master's program because one of the professors in a management course said, hey, you guys should go through this. But the biggest thing, the single learning from this for me was they talk about 2 concepts. One is a circle of influence and one is your circle of concern. So your circle of concern would be, hey, the weather's too hot. There's nothing you can really do about it. Or prices are too high. Really nothing you can do about it. And your circle of influence would be, I'll go to the beach. So it talks about, that's the one concept that stuck with me that, hey, if you focus and operate within your circle of influence, you end up reducing your circle of concern, and that gets you closer to your goal and success.
Interesting. It's like I think expectation is a big problem with humans. Like when you're sitting in traffic, you're annoyed because your expectation is that you wouldn't be, but you can't
Right.
control that. So just
Yep.
shut the fuck up and listen to a podcast or something.
Exactly.
There's a lot of things we can't control, but we can control our how we respond to that situation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that in itself, I think, reduces that concern.
Interesting. What is considered small? I'd like to believe that size doesn't matter, but then I've seen porn categories and they would beg to differ. Don't you think? No, all right, Gabe, I'm going to go over the 7. Just you Isn't this fun? Okay, the 7. Be proactive. I don't think anybody can argue about that. Begin with the end in mind.
Mm-hmm. Super important.
Put first things first. Yes, you should definitely go in order. Think win-win.
Yep.
Seek first to understand, then to be understood. Synergize and sharpen the saw. I mean, I think those are, as far as advice goes, pretty goddamn good.
Hey, if you could practice those, there's no doubt you're going to win,
You wouldn't be sweating small stuff because you had no small stuff because you'd just be crushing at life. All right, now is the important thing. We have to talk about your death row meal.
Man.
I feel so goddamn strongly about your first choice. Okay, so
hey, I'm a spicy guy. What can I say? I like spice.
Okay, right off the bat, you're going jalapeno poppers. Do you go cheddar or cream cheese in the middle?
It's got to be cream cheese, man.
Gotta be cream cheese. Thank you. I hate that they even offer cheddar. Cheddar is not a good melting cheese, first of all, and it belongs nowhere near the middle of a jalapeno. The jalapeno poppers, I don't know who came up with this. I probably should have done the research. Unbelievable.
Yep.
Hot, crispy, spicy, creamy. They give you some shit to dip it in. I mean, oh my God.
Any time of the day, right?
Breakfast. Put them in milk. Oh my God, jalapeno poppers are incredible. I need to do research. I need to know who came up with these. And now, I don't know if you've seen variants. I think this image depicts the classic jalapeno popper. Now people are, oh, dude, I'm telling you. Now people are just doing, like, they're eschewing the breadcrumbs, which you wouldn't think would be good, but they're wrapping bacon around it instead.
Oh,
and
wow.
I mean, I'm telling you.
I can't even imagine. Yep.
This is the thing I'll say about.
I'm sorry.
What's that?
Did you hear about the second one that I picked?
Well, I do want to acknowledge the second one, but I just want to say that the beauty of American cuisine, and sometimes it hurts, it's to our detriment as well, is that we're not rooted in tradition. So we will fuck with anything. It's the reason why we've come up with like double IPAs, triple IPAs, quadruple passion fruit, sour IPA. Like so my point of that about Germany's been making the same beer for 2,000 years because they're like, oh, we perfected it. We don't want to fuck with it. Whereas Americans go, oh, we're going to fuck with it. We're going to put Captain Crunch in beer and see how that is. So what you get is a lot of experimentation. You get a lot of failure, but you get a lot of, so now we're fucking with jalapeno poppers and added bacon to it. But I think that's, it's the American way.
That's how you drive innovation, I guess.
Exactly. I think because we all have a little schizophrenia. See, it's all come full circle. Okay. Second, you're going with samosas. This is the first image on Google that came up because there are many different varieties, right?
Yep. So it's like
your favorite?
My parents from India. I have originally Indian, so this is like Indian cuisine. We're dabbling into Indian cuisine, and this is probably one of my most favorite appetizers. So it's like a little dough that's fried, deep fried, and you could have pretty much any kind of stuffing in there. You could have chicken, beef, potatoes, you name it, and it's like a finger food kind of situation, right?
It's really hard to fuck up stuffing something in something and deep frying it. That's almost a recipe for success 100% of the time.
It's like fair food. That's what I call it,
It is, well,
go to a fair. And
in American fairs, I generally see deep fried Oreos and Twinkies. But if these come up, I'm ordering those. Listen, Gabe, you've never deep fried cocaine? What is this? Amateur hour? Jesus Christ. Get shit together. I've never had deep fried cocaine.
That's funny.
Your third choice is absolutely mind boggling. Not that I don't like it, but no one has ever brought coleslaw to the death row meal. Tell me about your love of coleslaw. This is fascinating.
Only because I'm vegetarian. I don't eat meat. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to go with coleslaw. I grew up on it, and I feel like stuff you grow up on becomes your comfort food. So if I'm dying, I want to be very comfortable before.
Coleslaw is just it's hard to argue with. I'm not I don't want to say it's refreshing because it's slathered in mayonnaise, but there is like a crisp freshness to a good coleslaw.
I mean, it's like if you either like it or not, right? So I'm one of those guys.
It's very polarizing. I'll say that people
Right?
fucking hate it sometimes. Like
Not
they're hating
everyone likes it.
coleslaw. It's like, what happened? Did coleslaw beat you as a child? Why do you hate it? It's very strange.
I knew I was going to get that, but I figured I'd just throw it in there.
I have no problem with coleslaw, but when I run into people that hate it, they hate it more than like this is a hate you should reserve for war or famine or disease.
Yep.
But they're like, no, fuck coleslaw. Calm down. Your next one, you went with flatbreads. I took that to mean some sort of non-esque thing. Was I on the right track here?
That, or I usually go with Italian flatbreads because there's just so much to them. You could just throw anything on top of it, and it turns into a delicious appetizer.
Okay, so I was skewing Indian. I was using contextual clues, but I guess an Italian flatbread, any flatbread is pretty good.
Yep. It's like finger food, man. You're watching a football game, boom, flatbread. Throw some cheese on there, a bunch of things, and you're good.
Yeah. Garlic naan, though, too. I got to tell you, garlic naan is ungoddamn believable.
Yeah, I definitely, I like it. I try to stay away from the naans, to be honest, because they're like, in my mind, they're like, what do you call it? They're like, I forget the English word for it. The dough is not that healthy. It's not made of wheat, but every once in a while I would dabble in it.
Well, in this case, you're about to die. So if you want to throw in a couple naans with the Italian flatbread.
That's true. You're right. Thanks for reminding me. I would absolutely go with garlic naan because it's not going to matter.
No, it's not going to matter. This is the end. Okay, now we're moving on. So again, this was the first image in Google Images that came up with paneer and lentils. So I don't know if this is
like cottage cheese. It's like better version of cottage cheese. That's what I would say. So if you don't eat meat, this is your thing. And believe it or not, but yeah, that's my go-to drink. It's usually Glenlivet, Glenmorangie.
I nailed it. Okay, so the reason I picked this scotch is because for some reason, and it's almost inexplicable, scotch, granite, dark wood all seem to go together. It doesn't make any sense. They shouldn't. They're wildly different things, but this is it. And then the glass with the big ice cube. Do you go ice?
Yep, totally. I mean, and I think one of the reasons I go with this, I don't drink much. I rarely ever drink anymore. College was the time where we were getting drunk every other night. And it didn't really matter what we were drinking, right? So
yes.
Now it's like, if I choose to, this is my go-to poison, which is like once in 3 months. But the reason I go for this is because I wake up fresh. There's no hangovers. So.
What is? I don't. That's totally unfamiliar to me. But I like brown booze, but I'm more of a bourbon guy. Scotch to me tastes like Band-Aids.
It's true. I mean, bourbon. Hey, it's right there.
Oh my God.
Can't go wrong with bourbon.
No, it's unbelievable. I do it. Tortillas are better than flatbreads.
They're cousins, I'd say,
Yeah, if I had to choose between some, I really got to think about this. Okay, if I concede the tortillas are better than flatbread, do I still get flat pizza? Because that's almost like you know what I'm saying? Like pizza, I think should be Italian style, should be very thin. Does that count as a flatbread? Not really. That's pizza though, right? All right. It seems like
I feel like two different categories.
I think they are too. Yeah, nice glass of Pappy Van Winkle. How much money do you have? Yeah, so obviously we would all like a nice glass of Pappy Van Winkle. I think the cheapest bottle of Pappy Van Winkle that's Old Rip, right? About $1,000. Jesus. Mm-hmm. Okay. Coconut water. This is straight out of a coconut. I don't know if this is how you want it served, but you want to go like you're pretty healthy on this last meal of yours.
I really am, man, because it took me a while to get to this because I tried every other drink out there, right from vitamin water to everything, and I'm trying to avoid sugar now. So that's really what.
All right, I gave it to you right out of a coconut because it's classy, and this feels last meal worthy. I think
it really does. I mean, it's just very appetizing. I can't remember when I had coconut water directly from the coconut because my go-to brand is the Costco brand.
I think this is probably going to taste better. I mean, it's fresh out of what more do you want?
Yep. This is what I'd do if I'm in Hawaii or some tropical place. I make it a point to get one of these after the Glenlivet.
Perhaps you got arrested in Hawaii, and this is a prison in Hawaii. So this is perfect.
Hey, this is the morning after, right? You drink your scotch at night, and then you wake up in the morning and drink some cocoa water, and you're good to go.
You know what I do? I drink bourbon all night, wake up, drink more bourbon. I think that's the problem.
Hair of the dog, huh?
Yeah, this is why I'm going to die at 44. Okay. This last one sounds like a delightful Indian dessert. You want to walk me through what this is?
So this is like really like a cheese ball that's fried and it's dipped in sugar water. I mean, it's like super amazing in terms of you can fill it up with the different dry fruits and then you try it. That's all I'm going to say. It's like melts in your mouth, and it's probably one of the best desserts I've had. And I've had the pleasure of living across the planet, right from
Mm.
Japan to Europe to obviously grew up here. So this
How
is
how is in your estimation, and listen, I know India is goddamn gigantic and there's a million different cuisines within India, but how do you feel the quality of American Indian food, as in an Indian restaurant in the United States? Where, like, is it,
on a
are
scale
they,
of 1 to 10. I
yeah.
would probably give it like a solid 3.
It's
No.
not good. It's not good.
I mean, don't get me wrong. It's not because of it's simply because it's like you said, it's a very complex cuisine, right?
Yeah.
So it's like the ingredients matter, and where they're grown, what soil they're grown in, the spices matter. Like every little thing matters. So it's probably one of the most complex cuisines I've eaten. I'll be honest.
See, yeah.
Too
Okay.
many friggin' spices, too many variations, too many permutation combinations.
Right. In the wrong continent, and the ingredients just can't be the same. So my thing on this is I lived in South Korea my junior and senior year in high school because my father's in the military. Korean restaurants in the United States are vaguely close. There's one near me that's very good, but it's still not anywhere near what it tastes like in Korea.
Yep.
So I think it's the difference between like a grocery store tomato and a garden tomato. They're kind of the same thing, but the flavor is way fucking off.
Way off. I mean,
but the only cuisine I can point to is where I've lived and go, well, what I'm getting you here is close. It's in the ballpark, but it's so much goddamn better. So,
yep. And I feel like it's across the board. I mean, eat Chinese food in China. That's like a different planet,
I mean, listen, I've been to McDonald's all over Europe and they don't taste the same either. So even if you're going after like shitty American food, it's still like, it's close.
Yep.
But
I bet you have some Italian friends who come out here and they've been horrified by, the pizza that we get here.
Right? Oh no, they love the Olive Garden. Chef Boyardee, they're like, oh, this shit is unbelievable. Way better than grandma. Oh, SpaghettiOs. Delightful. All right, let's go to your quote. I pulled up the Michael Scott version. Did you ever see this episode of The Office? You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Wayne Gretzky, as said by Steve Carell. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. We have to shoot our shots. Here's the thing I don't think people realize. We're all dying. It's like Interstellar. We are all dying. The planet's dying. You have to shoot your shots.
Yep. What's the worst that could happen?
Nothing if you don't care what people think.
Right. No, absolutely. And I feel like, I'm not sure if you heard of this concept, but there's a newer concept of multiverse. Have you heard of that at all?
Okay, I'm glad you brought this up because the multiverse is all over the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So I looked up, it's odd that you brought this up. I was like, fuck, space travel in this idea, it can't be that old. So I asked ChatGPT what the first book referencing space travel was. It was written in 1604, published in 1634.
Oh, wow.
So as far back as 1634, they started to wrap their heads around the idea that you could go to the moon. That was the plot of this novel.
Right.
Now we understand quantum mechanics. We understand there might be a multiverse. Like, I'm just obsessed with this idea of how little we knew not that long ago and how much we know now and how much we still don't know. So yes.
You know what? I'll piggyback on that thought because I was randomly watching a video on Instagram like 2 days ago where they were talking about some random guy in India, and I'm fascinated by Indian civilization. I'm going to start looking into it, even though I live in the States. Like 7,000 years ago, these guys were traveling through Andromeda and other galaxies because they had sophisticated spacecrafts, which would take you there in like 2 minutes through a portal. So it seems like there's ancient knowledge out there, which if, you could kind of sort of comprehend, it could turn into great businesses, give Elon Musk a run for his money and some of the other guys out there.
So to piggyback off that a little, I have this other show called Damn Lies and Statistics where I talk to authors of books about, nonfiction books about their area of expertise. And last week I did a guy who wrote a book on free will.
Okay.
And so the evolution of free will, and he's explaining like from where consciousness, not even consciousness, from where multi-celled organisms start to where we are now in the evolution of free will. One of my points was, so you know how it's either God, okay, let's take Christianity, for example. Let's go Genesis. creationism is God takes the dust, breathes air into it. All of a sudden you have humans made in his image, blah, blah, blah. That takes a lot of magic, right? Sort of magical thinking. What this guy explains is sort of the new primordial soup idea, that there were these hydrothermal vents that introduced heat and other chemicals to water that then sort of blah, 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 blah. All of a sudden multi-cell organisms exist. Even that requires a lot of magic. Yep. So, whatever explanation, whether you believe in a God that's living in the clouds and fucking, looks like us, or you believe that hot water essentially on the ocean floor in porous rocks, that's still magical,
Yep.
So the multiverse sounds crazy, but we believe in so much magic already, and we have to make sense of any of this.
Yep. I truly believe, Eric, that in some other universe, all possibilities are playing out that are not on this planet. But I'll leave you with one thought, which I truly believe in, that we're, like you would have heard, and every religion talks about it, that God resides within you. And I truly believe that we're all magical beings, because if you look at stardust and if you look at human bodies, we have every component of everything that's out in the universe that comprises a human body that makes you human. So I think it's fascinating.
And I'm mostly I'm agnostic. I'm mostly a nihilist, not like a goth nihilist. I just think nothing probably matters, and I'm not like upset about that. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe at the end they like, hey, everything mattered, and I was like, fuck, I was wrong. Sorry about that. I'm just a dumb human. What more do you want from me? But I guess we'll find out. Maybe, or we don't. Why don't
we don't exactly? We just continue this journey, right?
Yes, and that's why
it's kind of boring if you found out, like, oh, okay, this is what it is.
This is why you should just shut up, enjoy, have some jalapeno poppers. I think this is what I watch. All right. Well, listen, we've conducted the 5 questions of doom. I hope you had a good time. Do you want to plug your business while we're here? Just a little HouseStay?
Sure. So we actually, believe it or not, we discovered the space. We recognized in 2017 that people are going to want to live in homes piecemeal. Like, people are not going to sign up. People are not going to want to sign up for a 1-year lease. They would want to travel every few months because they'd have flexibility. And boom, we built this business called HouseStay.com. We built a website and a whole business around it, launched it in 2019. Before you know it, COVID happened and the prophecy came true. Wow. Everyone started working remotely. People were like, hey, I could work out of Japan or Jamaica or Spain. And now here we are, where the whole world has kind of sort of adopted this model of working remotely, working from home. And because of home prices being so high, people are not even buying homes. So I think it was a great time to discover the space and launch it. And now we're kind of sort of aspiring to be the Airbnb of monthly stays, because we don't want people paying a 30% service fee when they rent a home. And it's just fascinating to see what's happening in the space. And I think you'll hear more about HouseStay as we progress. We're currently in North America. Next year, we're going to be launching in Europe and then Asia. So hopefully, Eric, you can live wherever you want in the next 2-3 years without having to pay an arm and leg.
that would be ideal, because I'm living here where I don't. Oh yeah. Everyone's like, so the seasons in Massachusetts, everyone's like, oh, you get the seasons, but like, yeah, fuck the seasons. I don't care about the seasons. And the other thing is, like, okay, some states are hot, but you don't have to shovel sunshine, like, oh, the snow, fuck it. I do love that you have this.
You'd be surprised, Eric, how many folks from Massachusetts go to Miami during the winter. Like, they'll book months ahead of time. And some folks are older folks, even Canada. We call them snowbirds, right? Yeah. They're like, oh, I don't want to be in Massachusetts for the 3 months, and they'll book a home for 3 months in Miami, rent out their home, or just lock up their home.
I'm telling you,
that's what we're promoting. That's kind of what we're promoting with HouseStay, that, hey, you don't have to be stuck to one location.
There's only so many years you can take of it getting dark at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and having to shovel every morning. At some point, it breaks you, and then you're like, oh, fuck it. And I think it happens to every New Englander. Eventually, we have to go to Florida for the winters.
When I moved to California from Philadelphia, I got tired of digging out my car.
See, it's awful. It's goddamn awful. And I do like that you had this great idea, and it must have been, man, if only there was a global pandemic that forced people to work from home. You're like, oh my God, it happened. Holy shit.
Wait, talk about wishing.
Not bad, sir. Not bad. Well, listen, do me a favor. Can you stick around in the green room for a minute? I'm just going to log off the live so people can go on about their day.
Thanks for having me, Eric.
Oh yeah, thank you again for being here. Appreciate
Of
it.
course.
And I'll be back tomorrow. Have a lovely